Welcome you back to Morning Live. It is our final hour of the show here live from Coligny in the Northwest Province. We're still tackling some thorny issues, I must say, happening in this area. But let me just wrap up with this panel. We're going to change the panel and get some new people on board to talk about different issues, but in relation to the specific issue that we're tackling this morning. Let me just quickly go back to you, Dr. Groenewald. How do we make sure moving forward that both black and whites live together in harmony?
Yes. I think very important is that we must say to each other that we must create mutual respect for each other. If we don't have mutual respect for each other and don't respect our differences, then we're not going to have progress. The second thing is that I say again, politicians are role models. They must set the example. And the example they are to put forward is to say, listen, we have our differences. Let's take hands and see how we can start creating jobs for our people. The moment the person has a job, they've got dignity. And that is the second thing. The third thing is what we must say, that we must accept that all of us wants to build South Africa. We want a prosperous South Africa, a safe South Africa for each other. And then we must say that if we have differences, let's sit around the table and talk about it. Let's respect the law of the country. Because if we have differences and you make a decision to say, but I don't agree with you, and because of that, now I'm going to burn everything. We're not going to have progress. Right. If we do that, we will have mutual respect for each other, and then we will have progress in South Africa.
All right, let me just move along to Ndate Dakota Elokhota from the African National Congress. Your final words as we're wrapping up.
Look, I think from the preamble of the Constitution of the Republic, which says that we have to deal with the injustice of the past, we have to heal the wounds which were created by apartheid colonialism, because we are where we are. Because this incident of Coligny is just a manifestation of the system that we come from. We need to acknowledge that, because we can't move unless we acknowledge our past, no matter how bad it may be. The second point is that, as it is the case with the matter of Coligny, is that our people here have lost trust and confidence in the system. There is a suspicion that there is a collusion between the police, the farmers, and the court. We would want authorities to investigate that and get to the bottom, because there are other incidents of racism where farm workers have been beaten, where other people have been found dead, like for instance Litiani and a cycler who was bumped here over the road. Those cases have not moved. The police needs to help us in this regard and the system so that there can be a trust, including the fact that bail was granted to the accused. It was a known thing. Now what we think is that not this court here, which is contaminated to be in collusion with the accused, should have made this particular ruling. Maybe another court. We are not saying that this accused must be denied bail, because bail is a right of every accused for as long as you have an address. But if you say
if you say this court is contaminated, what has the ANC done? You, the ruling party, at the end of the day.
Yeah, look, you would know that the judiciary in this country is independent. Just like all other stakeholders, it's our responsibility to ensure that we help those who are victims of injustice. And as it is the case now, the Musoyo family, we have committed as the ANC to assist them with legal resources to ensure that justice is done. And we would want even Chapter 9 institution, be it the Human Rights Commission, be it the Public Protector, to come to this area, and not only here, go even as far as Vryburg, Potchefstroom, where there have been very horrendous incidents of racism, and needs to be investigated, because this particular racism, according to the communities here, it has racial connotation. It has class contradiction. Certain people who are rich, white, and affluent in these communities, they seem to be getting a freeway in all the courts. And that is a problem. And I think we need to investigate that particular system. It is not going to help. We need a commitment even from the Freedom Front Plus. It's not going to help to want to blame President Zuma for everything, because President Zuma did not create apartheid colonialism. President Zuma is implementing what is in the Constitution to ensure that we heal the wounds of the past. We deal with an injustice. And we can only do that if we radically, socially transform this economy so that it can be inclusive and all South Africans can benefit. I mean, Coligny alone is part of the maize triangle, which is responsible for over 8 million tons of maize. What is the role of other members of this community, except only farmers?
All right.
What is the role of the farm workers? What is their share in the state? What is it that they're supposed to do? What relevant skills are done? What is the commitment of those who are fluent and rich to assist them?
All right. No,
we need a commitment of all.
All right.
It's not going to be possible to reconcile. And this issue of reconciliation is something that we must pursue. It's a program that we must insist on, because the founding father and the forebear of it, President Nelson Mandela, will roll in his grave if this country can be plunged into a civil war or into anarchy.
Okay, I have to move on, I'm afraid. I have to move on. But just before I move on to the DA, we have learned of news breaking this morning that your deployee, former Eskom CEO Brian Molefe, is going back to Eskom on Monday, back to his position. What do you have to say as the African National Congress in this province? Just a quick one on that.
Look, I have limitation to comment on that because I'm representing the African National Congress. I'm not representing Eskom.
But he was your deployee in Parliament, so surely you have something to say. Look,
any South African who has capacity to can turn around the situation can be deployed or can be used in any position. So it is the case with Brian Molefe as a citizen of this country. If he has capacity to help us in Eskom, he can go there. If he has capacity to help us in the SABC, he can be there. If he has a capacity to help us in FAMI, he must be used there. So I have no issue against that particular.
But do you know, did you know beforehand that he was going to move back to Eskom? Or are you hearing it for the very first time with us now this morning? I'm
hearing it for the very first time.
Okay, all right. Yes. Thank you so much. Now, the Democratic Alliance, Ntatejo Maklua, the provincial leader of the DA, we've learned that the DA will open a case of incitement of violence against the Premier of the province. Talk to us about that.
Well, thank you, Palesa. Just to pick up on the Brian Molefe issue. You know, Brian Molefe was sent to Parliament for the North, not for the Northwest, but to actually prevent what is happening and to actually cover the president. Brian Molefe was actually there for the Guptas and President Zuma.
That's not the issue. It's not the topic of the day, with all due respect. It's just that I needed their take as the ANC, because Ntate Molefe was their deployee from this province. So now on to the case that will be open against the Premier.
Everything boils down to the faithfulness of politicians. You know, I want to say outright, we as the Democratic Alliance, we do not condone violence, nor racism. We don't condone hate speech. We don't condone segregation. And what we are seeing here as a country, we have overcome a lot of things since the days of CODESA. So the people do not believe in the ANC anymore, because when it comes to racism, you will find that it is the ANC who is the referee and the player. If you listen to what the Premier told mourners during a funeral, that if they are not racist, why are they signing a petition for bail? The fact is that there is a constitution and we must respect the law. We cannot infringe in the constitutional right of individuals to apply for bail. It is for that reason we are saying, as we are speaking here, Coligny today present what can happen if political parties allow to divide us. But the crux of the matter for us as the Democratic Alliance is to create a forum. We spoke about reconciliation, healing and redress. For me, in this province, it's a knee-jerk operation tool. It follows processes. The Premier says Coligny is not the only town that is racist. What are the other towns? And what is the Premier and the ANC done to get these people together? So I am challenging the Premier of the Northwest, who is absent today, who does not see the urgency of this debate. I am challenging him.
Oh, well, the Premier is here. He will be joining us with our second panel. He is here.
So I would say that we have to come together as a collective to work on solutions, how we're going to address and bring the people together again. It's about the child. that we have lost, and we must prevent this and make sure that we, as South Africans, can live in harmony.
All right. No, you haven't really responded to my question. So are you opening a case of incitement of violence?
Yes, of course.
What has the Premier said that incited violence?
Well, yes, of course. We also investigate other cases whereby Sanko and alike has make a call on school children to burn the schools. The Premier said racist things at the funeral. Today, 11:30, we will go and we will lay a charge against, and the court in this instance must also decide whether he is right.
The funeral that was on Sunday, you're only laying these charges 5 days later. Why has it taken the DA so long to act on this?
Well, it is not the Premier alone. We have decided to take on the Premier today by himself. There are other people as well, but we are busy with our own investigation to see to what extent we can also take others to court. I also would like, if I be given the opportunity, to make a call on the residents of Coligny. There are WhatsApp groups and there are WhatsApp statements, recordings that really put us as Coligny residents in a state of panic. The other day, we believed that COSATU will come and have a march. I came to Coligny. I spoke to a certain Colonel Acello who said there's no such thing. So there are a lot of hoax WhatsApp messages, and I would like to call upon the residents of Coligny to ignore those, and let us also believe and trust that what is happening as far as the court case is concerned, that the outcome will be an outcome that we all are happy about.
All right, well, that's it. Thank you so much. EFF, did you want to say your final words quickly?
Thank you. Let me just indicate, it has been confirmed from the communities that from the same farms that the boy was found, there has been other deaths that had not been investigated. Now, it's a problem that we are having. It's a problem that the community is facing. Now, let's come to the issue of bail. We don't have a problem with people obtaining bail from courts, but we have a problem with people obtaining bail on the basis that the state did not tender proper evidence in terms of bail, as well as, on the other hand, lack of proper assessments of the evidence that has been tendered by the magistrate. Now, we have a problem with that. Now, let's come to the issue of reconciliation.
You need to be very quick. We've got to take the headlines.
What does reconciliation mean? Reconciliation means a restoration of friendship. Now, do we have the friendship that needs to be restored? We must acknowledge that reconciliation is retrospective. It must be a two-way direction. It can't be from the one side of the community.
All right. Thank you so much. Let me thank our panel. We are going to be changing to the other parties that are involved in this matter. Let's quickly take your final update of News on Morning Live as we hand back to our studios. Leanne.